Fair warning, I'm briefly mentioning a couple of topics of racism when it comes to MiHoYo's games. Now, I'm not entertaining any arguments whatsoever against what's pretty clear-cut racism, as they're just one of a whole heap of issues that's shared across a lot of East Asian games and developers. Listen to black and indigenous voices on these issues, not some random white person on the internet. In 2022, the year of our Lord, I came into a mythical period. Every person whose Steam account is over 100 licenses deep desires in the depths of their heart. My backlog was complete to a satisfying point, for me anyway. I'd spent at least 2 hours with each game I had up to that point and decided whether I wanted to stop and quit or continue a title. And then I arrived at a new problem. At the time, I was in between jobs, and I needed something to occupy the immense amount of downtime I had while I went and found work while doing day-to-day things, and with no money to spare and a complete backlog. What was I supposed to do? On a friend's recommendation and showcase of the game, I ended up making the ill-advised decision to get into Genshin Impact. Now, there are plenty of reasons why this was a bad idea, and I'm not here to rehash them all nor try and justify why I did. But there's no denying that I really got into it. Especially considering my team that, by the end of Fontaine, turned anything into smoldering cheese on the beaches around Mondstadt. Now, the last time I logged in was briefly for the Xbox launch on November 20th, 2024, and I haven't reinstalled it on any system since. Conversely, I started playing Honkai Star Rail in version 1.1 about a month after the game launched. From about 1.5 onward, I got into the game so hard that I started theory crafting independently of theory crafters like the folks who write for Pridwen and Kuching Mains. I was theory crafting around my pulling situation like mad, where at the time I couldn't pull a sustain unit to save my life, yet somehow amassed most of the DPS characters in the game. I swear by my E1S1 Jingliu with Blade and Yunli, even the Herta is a much better unit overall. This isn't to mention the what felt like player hostile design in Genshin. You could only farm talent materials for characters and ascension materials for weapons on certain days, unless you played on Sunday, where you could get them all. I wasn't looking to play on specific days to level characters. And then there's the bigger issues. In the English dub, dialogue was weighty, and that got worse as time went on. Then, generally, the game made light of a ton of other things, like the erasure of African, Aztec, and various indigenous peoples while taking their culture rather liberally for Natlan. And then there's the issues in Sumeru, but it's not worth waffling on all of it right now. Now, that's not to say that Star Rail is free of sin. It isn't. I'm aware as I play it, it's exempt from the SAG-AFTRA strikes by nature of it being both an ongoing project from before the strikes and a dubbing project from a foreign language, so it falls under a double standard. And then there's the issue of Rappa, a white character based so heavily in rap and hip-hop culture that it's frankly a sin that she isn't black. But again, this is a discussion better suited for people who are more informed than some white person from the Midwest. And all this isn't to say that I didn't enjoy my time with Star Rail. This isn't to say that I don't enjoy my time with it still. I dove into this game not expecting much more than what Genshin brought to the table, and I stuck with it because it not only felt more manageable, but honestly more compelling.
Let's give him a fight!
And then I played Metaphor ReFantazio. Now, full disclosure, Atlus has been on my radar for a while. Friends and acquaintances have played and replayed the Persona games, coming out of them all with high praise. That includes my inspiration for doing these sorts of videos, Marty Sleva, formerly of The Escapist, now of Second Wind. Unfortunately, I started with Persona 5 Royal, and I had to stop and take a break before I committed to more Persona because that premise of Joker and the player character hit way too close to home. I had to stop. And I got turned off of Atlus's catalog for a while because of that. Then, on October 11th, 2024, Atlas released Metaphor ReFantazio to critical acclaim. It stayed on my radar because those same people who loved Persona had even more good to say about Metaphor. People I knew, loved, and respected loved this game. People were praising it right and left, even Yahtzee Croshaw thought it was alright. It wasn't until I heard the music on an 8-bit drummer stream that I finally decided to give it a shot. I snagged a library copy, stuck it in the console, and decided after spending several hours with it to purchase the game. I'm not that far in, only a few hours of time of writing, but I'm already liking it. From the effects to the story I've experienced thus far, hell, even the music is wonderful. Especially the monk chanting and the battle music, that's what hooked me into Halo at an early age. I'm still in the mines, working my way back to town, wondering when I'll get my next companion after Stroll, and focusing hard on getting through the dungeon. I'm really digging the little things that make up the whole, taking out small enemies in the overworld, then stunning larger enemies into submission before entering battle. I'm enjoying how fleshed out this combat system is, between the positions in combat and the archetypes, what units are available in game. And then the next day, the Hypogeum Enigma event began in Star Rail, and I started mindlessly going through its rather simple puzzles to further participate in getting currency to participate in the gambling mechanic of this Skinner box of a game. And then I stopped halfway through. I won't lie to you. I've spent money on Star Rail. I've spent money on Genshin. Hell, I've spent money on Zenless Zone Zero, a game that is so distracting with such a odd font choice that I can't read it. What I've spent into these mindless Skinner boxes of hollow games could have easily been spent on far more satisfying games with similar gameplay. For Genshin, The Legend of Zelda's, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, and Immortals Phoenix Rising. For Star Rail, a Persona game that wasn't 5, Final Fantasy, or the Secret of Mana remakes. For Zenless, Dragon's Dogma, Dragon Age Veilguard, or Gears of War for modern choices. Games with gameplay resemblant of Genshin's open world exploration, Star Rail's turn-based strategy, or Zenless's multi-unit combat deal. All without the gambling. And then I remembered how raw the voices behind the words of the victims of this sort of predatory monetization were. Specifically those interviewed in the video, The Addictive Cost of Predatory Video Game Monetization. A 5-year-old video from James Stephanie Sterling. Whether it was their voice or an actor that Stephanie hired, the words of the victims of addiction made me realize how much of an addict I am. I once thought I'd never fall into that, and now here I am, having spent over $400 in all on avatars of anime characters in a game that'll just power creep them. And then I thought about how many gacha games there are beyond MiHoYo, like Fate Grand Order, Blue Archive, Wuthering Waves, and Infinity Nikki. And then I thought of the live service bust that's taking place right now, and the fear that American developers are just going to make their own gacha games beyond sports titles that are just glorified casinos to be replaced annually. I'm making a conscious decision to dial back how much I spend in this game. By extension, I'm making a conscious decision to dial back the theory crafting I do in these games. I'm actively making a conscious decision to dial back my involvement with these Skinner boxes that call themselves games, knowing full well that one new chump, witting or unwitting, will inevitably replace me. Because Metaphor ReFantazio made Honkai Star Rail more hollow than any informed voice on its Skinner box nature ever could have.